Donald Trump's political career has been one defined by controversy, bombastic rhetoric, and increasingly bizarre claims. His latest rally in Wisconsin was no exception, leaving even his staunchest supporters perplexed. While rallies have long been his strength, drawing thousands of enthusiastic supporters, the energy at this event was different. Dwindling crowd sizes, early departures, and bizarre, incoherent ramblings marked what can only be described as a disastrous performance. From outlandish claims of street gangs with MK-47s to his familiar diatribes against political rivals, Trump's Wisconsin speech seemed to highlight a growing disconnect between the former president and his base. Trump's increasingly erratic speeches have raised eyebrows among political analysts, and this particular event in Wisconsin may have signaled a turning point. Once able to command the adoration of tens of thousands, his crowd sizes are now dwindling, leaving many to wonder whether his political influence is beginning to wane. In this video, we'll break down the key moments of Trump's latest Wisconsin rally and analyze what they mean for his potential 2024 run. The declining crowd energy. The event in Wisconsin, a key battleground state for any presidential hopeful, was clearly a critical stop for Trump. His team likely anticipated a large turnout, given Wisconsin's importance in recent electoral battles. However, what unfolded was a stark contrast to the massive rallies that defined his earlier campaigns. Instead of tens of thousands of passionate supporters, Trump was met with a smaller, less enthusiastic crowd. Observers noted that some attendees left early, a rare occurrence at a Trump rally. Trump himself seemed to be aware of the lackluster energy. At one point, he tried to reassure his audience by exaggerating the number of people outside, claiming 40,000 to 50,000 were waiting to get in, though the reality was quite different. We were going to have a thing outside. We could have held the people. What do you think? 40,000? 50,000 people, Trump asked rhetorically. This was clearly an attempt to mask the declining enthusiasm inside the venue. His claim that Secret Service could not accommodate the crowd due to their need to guard Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi only added to the absurdity. Trump's speeches have always thrived on crowd energy, but the lack of excitement in Wisconsin was palpable. Gone were the roaring chants of "Build the Wall" or "Lock her up" that once electrified his supporters. In their place was a smattering of applause, leaving Trump visibly irritated and more disjointed than usual. The incoherent ramblings. As the event continued, Trump's speech descended into a series of bizarre, disjointed rants that left many scratching their heads. One of the more surreal moments came when he claimed that street gangs in American cities are now wielding MK-47s, a slip of the tongue as he likely meant AK-47s. He elaborated on this by saying, "You have street gangs, Venezuelan killers occupying small towns, and they're armed with MK-47s. I know that gun very well. I've become an expert on guns." The blunder was not lost on critics, and it added to the growing perception that Trump is losing his grip. His attempt to paint a dystopian picture of America, where small Midwestern towns are supposedly overrun by heavily armed gangs, seemed more like fear-mongering than a coherent policy discussion. Yet, for those who have followed Trump's rhetoric over the years, this kind of hyperbole was nothing new. What was more troubling, however, was the sheer incoherence of his speech. As he rambled on about topics ranging from the Secret Service to Charles Lindbergh, his points often veered off into unrelated territory. He jumped from attacking Kamala Harris's debate performance, calling her mentally disabled, to blaming her for letting dangerous criminals into the country. These tangents lacked any clear connection to one another, leaving his audience bewildered. One consistent theme throughout the speech was Trump's ongoing attacks on Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. In a particularly inflammatory moment, Trump called Harris mentally disabled and claimed, Only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. This kind of personal attack has become a hallmark of Trump's speeches, but the lack of substance behind his criticisms is becoming more apparent with each passing rally. He also continued his relentless assault on Joe Biden's mental fitness, stating, "Joe Biden became mentally impaired, and Kamala was born that way." The crowd offered a smattering of applause, but it was far from the thunderous reaction he's used to. These insults, which were once central to his appeal, now seemed tired and repetitive, as if Trump was running out of new material. Moreover, Trump tried to discredit Harris by recounting a story he had previously told, falsely claiming she worked at McDonald's and had lied about it. She worked at McDonald's, and it was a lie. "She's a liar," he exclaimed, offering no proof to support the bizarre accusation. It was clear Trump was grasping at straws to keep his base fired up, but even his insults felt half-hearted. Fear-mongering about immigration. In true Trump fashion, the speech featured heavy doses of fear-mongering, particularly on the issue of immigration. He repeatedly warned the crowd that immigrants were taking jobs from Black and Hispanic Americans. These people that are coming across the border illegally by the millions are taking the jobs of the Black population of America and the Hispanic population of America, Trump declared. The lack of evidence or detailed policy proposals to back up his claims was glaring. He also returned to one of his favorite tropes, characterizing immigrants as dangerous criminals. "These people are animals," he said, a line reminiscent of his 2018 remarks about immigrants. He went on to claim that these immigrants were responsible for an unprecedented crime wave, stating, "You're going to have crime the likes of which nobody has ever seen before." Once again, Trump's rhetoric about immigration lacked any substance. While Vice President Harris has put forth detailed policies on immigration, Trump's speech offered no concrete solutions, only vague promises to send them back. The contrast between Trump's fear-driven narrative and the policy-based approach of his opponents was stark. Promises of prosecution and voter fraud. In another familiar refrain, Trump returned to the issue of voter fraud, once again suggesting that the 2020 election was stolen from him. "If we win, and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election," Trump told the crowd. He even hinted at revisiting the 2020 election, stating, "And if we can, we'll go back to the last one too." These claims have been thoroughly debunked, but Trump has refused to let go of the narrative that the election was rigged. His continued focus on voter fraud may resonate with his core supporters, but it also risks alienating more moderate voters who are tired of relitigating the 2020 election. The contrast with Kamala Harris. One of the most striking aspects of Trump's Wisconsin rally was the clear contrast it drew with Kamala Harris's recent speeches. While Trump's performance was defined by incoherence and fear-mongering, Harris has been steadily outlining detailed policy proposals aimed at helping middle-class Americans. Whether it's her plans for small business tax cuts, her approach to border security, or her commitment to middle-out economic growth, Harris has offered a vision for the future that stands in stark contrast to Trump's apocalyptic warnings. Trump's inability to articulate a clear policy agenda, especially on key issues like the economy and immigration, is becoming more of a liability as he gears up for a potential 2024 run. Meanwhile, Harris continues to build her platform, offering a sharp contrast to Trump's increasingly erratic behavior. Donald Trump's Wisconsin rally was, by all accounts, a disaster. With declining crowd sizes, rambling speeches, and outlandish claims about street gangs with MK-47s, the event highlighted a growing disconnect between Trump and his base. His relentless attacks on Kamala Harris and Joe Biden felt tired and repetitive, while his fear-mongering on immigration lacked any substance. As Trump continues to recycle the same old talking points, his opponents are building detailed policy platforms aimed at addressing the issues facing Americans today. Whether Trump can recover from this decline in enthusiasm remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: his once dominant hold on the Republican Party is beginning to weaken. Wisconsin, a critical state for any candidate in 2024, may very well be the state that marks the beginning of Trump's political downfall.